pro wrestling really, I used to watch pro wrestling. I remember like back in the day when like nobody watched that. It was like 2000, 2003, three or something. Like nobody watched it back then. I used to watch it, and I mean, ironically, of course. But then it got all popular and stuff again. And why would I watch something that's popular?
Playtime's over because tonight somebody's going to get their ass whooped tonight in here.
Why do I run and why do I hide when I see it coming further on down the line? Why do I sing and why do I write these songs? I know I'll try to these thoughts of mine, but the springs arrived as I just wait.
Hello and welcome to Bowling Shoe Handsome for Wednesday, April 18th, 2012. I'm your host, Kevin McElvaney, and we are here on a brand new day of the week for Bowling Shoe Handsome. Same great content, same sometimes tolerable host. And as always, we have a lot to talk about, but first, some music.
Last week I was watching Saturday Night Live. There was a band, their singer had bleached hair. They were talking about stuff I could relate to. Said put Bon Jovi in the trunk and tape the clock. 2 days ago I turned punk rock. People ask me why, I said anarchy. 2 days ago I turned punk rock. No, I couldn't take me days with an attitude and a strut. My hair used to be brown, but now it's 2 shades of blue. My parents say, who you trying to offend? I said,
It's always strange when something that's thought to be subversive or different from the norm, becomes the mainstream. And that's what we've been seeing a lot of in WWE recently. Of course, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, both former ROH top billed stars, never expected to go, or certainly not expected to go as far as they have by most. And yet, they've taken the ball, they've run with it, so to speak. They've really changed the way the WWE operates in a lot of ways. And these are two guys who did things more or less their own way the whole way through. Sure, they paid their dues both before and during their WWE runs, but again, certainly not the two archetypal WWE guys, and yet, they've managed to make it to the top. And now everything's just getting weird.
2 days ago I turned punk rock. People ask me why, I said anarchy. 2 days ago I turned punk rock. Now I walk a David Denny's.
What was really interesting to me was an interview that took place, well, it became public last week. This is with Daniel Bryan, and he was discussing his recent rise to success in WWE, the unlikely success of the Yes Chants, you know the ones, and so forth. In the interview, they asked him about this unlikely success. They also asked him about what music he's been listening to lately. And interestingly enough, he remarked that he's been listening to a lot of Frank Turner. Frank Turner is an amazing musician from the UK who has put out some amazing songs, played all over the US, all over the UK, all over the world, but mostly to small DIY audiences, house shows and so forth. And yet, last Friday, not long after this interview became public, Frank Turner headlined Wembley Arena in the UK. This, of course, just before WWE's Raw and SmackDown shows took place in the UK on its current world tour. And Frank Turner sold out a 12,000 seat arena. This is a guy who will play, under 1,000 seat venues in the U.S., becoming huge in his home country, and good for him. And parallel to that, You have Frank Turner, who's this underground DIY guy getting huge, and then you have Daniel Bryan, you have CM Punk. These two guys who come from, in some ways, similar backgrounds to me. I'm not trying to compare myself to them, but share common interests, listen to some of the same bands, have some of the same passions for social issues, and it's just a really cool thing to see, especially as the whole focus of this show, of course, is pro wrestling, but with this sort of indie twist, and how you can watch WWE and you can watch this big multimedia international conglomerate and still find these DIY aspects in it. And it's a bit of a contradiction, really, but it's also a hell of a lot of fun to think about, because you have these guys like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, and you have an increasing amount of guys who are going about things in different ways and changing things and shaking up the system.
Let's all go to Europe, see those parasites, drinking coffee all day long and hanging out all night. Well, alright, cruising down the reefer path, meeting German chicks, and I ain't coming back to the USA until I get my kicks. Well, alright, let's go get some escargot, let's go drink some wine, spaghetti and Palermo and some bratwurst down the ride. Well, alright, watch out for your passport, don't eat Italian fruit. Well, alright.
That was the band Sweet Baby Jesus, later known as Sweet Baby, with the song Let's All Go to Europe, available on the split with Brent's TV, which you can purchase on iTunes. Let's All Go to Europe, indeed. WWE, of course, on the big European and indeed world tour, not just in the UK, but stretching as far as Russia, which WWE, according to kayfabe COO Triple H, plans to visit soon in the near future, and quote, on a bigger scale. Actually, that's a paraphrase, on a bigger scale, but on a bigger scale with a bigger show and a bigger experience, I believe he said, than the previous live show that just took place in Russia. So imagine WWE, just imagine this for a minute, WWE having a show in Russia, perhaps an edition of Raw, even a pay-per-view someday. Juxtapose this with what WWE used to be like years ago. Think back to the 1980s, think back before that, pro wrestling broadly in the 70s and beforehand, the Cold War era, the Russian villains. Certainly not something that would have been embraced, at least on a grand scale, by a Russian or a Soviet then audience at that point. And yet it expands, and WWE expands globally, and it's virtually all of its business growth is coming from these international markets. And again, at the same time, with this change of pace, this change in exposure, comes this change in the main event scenes. You see these guys who never would have been main eventing WWE main eventing. And at the same time, you see guys like Brock Lesnar returning, now feuding with John Cena, effectively making John Cena something of a rogue defender of WWE, when he was viewed as recently as less than a year ago to be the old hat, to be, as CM Punk called him, the New York Yankees. It's very interesting to me. there on the still truly DIY end of things, we had the band Dry Feet from Philadelphia. Dry Feet will be playing the festival we've been promoting, the Road to Ruin Fest, which is coming up in Philadelphia this very weekend. Again, that being Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia, Mississippi. No offense to Philadelphia, Mississippi. I don't think they have anything coming up that blends punk rock and wrestling so seamlessly as this festival does. Again, this will serve as the record release show for the new Menzingers album, the new Nightsins record, as well as many others, and some fantastic bands playing that. The wrestling is going to be furnished by, you guessed it, Chikara Pro. Chikara Pro, a fitting tag team partner, of course, for Road to Ruin Fest, and some of the wrestlers appearing, though certainly not limited to these guys: Chuck Taylor, Ophidian, Green Ant and Fire Ant of the Colony, and Grizzly Redwood. So that's going to be quite an event. For more information about Road to Ruin Fest, log on to facebook.com/Road to Ruin Fest, or you can just Google the festival and you'll get loads of information about it, including a lineup of who's playing, and you can even pull up a lineup of who is playing on what day. And of course, all this brought to you by Evil Weevil Records, the label that put out that Dry Feet song that we heard just a few minutes ago. Be sure and check them out. The Brock Lesnar guy, he was like one of those big jock MMA guys. He's gonna come in and who's gonna give a crap about that guy? I mean seriously. I mean, it's not like I watch anyway. I mean, I was just flipping through the channels and I saw him on there, but you know, it's certainly not gonna get me to tune in. That guy, it's like cool tribal tat, bro. Yeah, like just count me out on that.
Cut my hair, then I'm gonna shave my beard. I'm gonna find a steady job, and I won't look like a slob. Whoa, briefcase, tie like a noose around my neck. I don't think you understand, I'm not the man you think I am. 'Cause it's so boring to be at work on time. And I'd much rather work from noon to 1 instead of 9 to 5. Payday, buy myself a couple drinks. My wealth begins to spend, but my losses and I wear. Whoa, morning, flies in the pockets of my khaki pants. My breath still reeks of booze, but my losses and I love. 'Cause it's so boring to be at work on time. And I'd much rather work from noon to 1 instead of 9 to 5. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. 'Cause it's so boring to be at work on time. And I'd much rather work from noon to 1 instead of 9 to.
WWE announced this week that WrestleMania is the highest pay-per-view draw in the history of the company. I will repeat, the highest pay-per-view draw in the history of the company, with over 1.3 million purchases of WrestleMania 28, headlined by The Rock and John Cena, and of course the match with Maria Menounos from Extra. Interesting time for WWE, as I've been repeating ad nauseum the past several weeks. And it's interesting not just because of the ratings, but because of the possibility that in the midst of all this success that WWE has been having relative to some other periods, that we see some different things going on. And again, if an audience embraces these differences, then that can be a positive vehicle for affecting change at least in television programming. I don't know about the world at large. It seems affecting change seems daunting, but if you're not watching a TV show, then the network is not getting the ratings. The company that's producing the programming is not getting the ratings. Scott Steiner, who is, I think we could safely say, done with TNA at this point, made a call to his internet-based wrestling fans recently for them to stop watching TNA segments, not altogether, but the TNA segments which featured Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. I stopped doing that a long time ago. I stopped watching those segments, but the fair point to be made here is that if enough people tune out during those segments, then the message will eventually go through that these are not the money makers and the draws that they appear to be, and that hopefully TNA will be backed into something of a corner. We already see that supposedly Eric Bischoff is not going to be airing on TNA is not going to be appearing on TNA programming anymore. I will believe that when I see it, which will be never. But a guy can hope. Anyway, the general spirit behind this is good. The idea is if you like something, you support it. You go to the live show, you cheer for it. If you're into a particular independent wrestling promotion, you go and you support them. You tell friends about them. You post Facebook links about them. You tweet about them. You tumble about them. You tumble for them. Karma, wow. Not Karma Chameleon-esque. Culture Club-esque. That may have been Boy George Solo. If I got that wrong, I do apologize. And that would be a grievous error on my part. The spirit of my comment remains the same. That if you like something, you get out there and you cheer like hell for it. And if you don't like it, stop watching it. Because if you keep watching it, you're going to get more of the same mediocre crap piled on your proverbial plate week after week. Remember, the power lies in your remote. The power lies in you. Get out there, support local music, support local wrestling, support the things that you love, and to hell with the things that you don't. Thanks once again for tuning in. Just want to remind everybody that the music that we've heard here tonight, with the exception from the first song from Third Year Freshman, is available online. The most recent song we heard was by the band Sass Dragons, and that was the song Workhorse from the album Bunkaroo, available on iTunes. And thanks to all of the musicians who provided music to tonight's show. Quick disclaimer that the views of the babbling wrestling fan hipster do not represent those of Bowling Shoe Handsome. And by babbling, hopefully you can figure out the difference between what I'm referring to there and just me babbling here right now. It's subtle, but it's there. And if you want to leave comments, you can leave them on our YouTube page, BSH podcast, over at thebradyhicks.com in the comment section, or by email, bowlingshoehandsome@gmail.com. Thanks once again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
So don't ask me how I am, don't ask me